Welcome to Keep It Electric with Tremayne Person. This is episode 53. As always, we're diving into all things Seattle Mariners. At the time of this recording, Friday, September 13th, the Mariners are sitting firmly in second place in the AL West. 4.5 games behind the Houston Astros. Still a tight race with every game counting as things heat up as we head towards the finish line. In today's episode, we got plenty to talk about. The Mariners are gearing up for Game 2 of their crucial 4-game series against the Texas Rangers. There's a lot riding on it. We'll break that down at the close of the show. But before we get there, we're going to talk about what got us to this point and what needs to happen if the Mariners want to keep their playoff hopes alive. So let's jump in. We have some key updates in the Mariners transactions. Jason Vosler has cleared waivers and has been outrighted back to Tacoma. If you've been tuning in regularly, you'll know this isn't really a surprise. I mentioned his name in my last episode, that this was likely the outcome. And sure enough, he's back in Tacoma. Vosler's solid in the minor leagues. I don't think he's really a candidate to be an everyday first baseman. I think that's Tyler Locklear. That's kind of his spot going forward, probably next year. So it's clear that the big league roster is moving in a different direction. Vosler can play some outfield, but again, like I don't see him in a Mariners uniform unless there's a significant injury. Some more concerning news. Jimmy Garcia has been transferred from the 15-day IL to the 60-day IL due to his ongoing right elbow inflammation. That's the same injury that's been troubling Gregory Santos. Unfortunately, this looks like this is going to be the end of the road for Garcia's season, and more than likely, like this is going to be the end of his time with the Seattle Mariners. He's 35 years old. He's set to hit free agency this offseason. It's safe to say his future in baseball is in question. It's a disappointing end for someone who we had high hopes for. We did pick him up before the trade deadline. We didn't get the impact we were expecting, and that's kind of a tough pill to swallow. We'll see who, if anyone, decides to pick him up this offseason. The window is definitely closing for his career. It's anyone's guess if he decides to keep playing or if he's going to hang it up. On another note, with Luis Castillo being placed on the injured list, the Mariners have activated backup catcher Zebi Zavala from the minors. It's still unclear how long he'll be up, but it's interesting timing because Emerson Hancock was scratched from his start in Tacoma, and now he's in the clubhouse in T-Mobile Park. So we might see Zavala catching for Hancock again, similar to what we saw earlier this season. That combo did have a strong showing in Colorado. Zebi, that was probably his only good game this year, and it's possible that we could see a repeat performance if they're pairing those two together. Emerson Hancock is a guy I think we've all been kind of keeping an eye on. He's got all the tools. Honestly, I think he's MLB ready. He's MLB ready right now. He's just stuck in a bit of a log jam because the Mariners starting rotation is just so good. If we decide to move on from one of our current starters this offseason, I think Hancock could very well be in the rotation next year. Either way, he's definitely a valuable trade piece, and I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes part of a big move in the future if he does not get added to our rotation in the future. Quickly, let's touch on this last series split with the Padres. It was a much-needed split when they came into town. The Mariners were in desperate need of some momentum, and thankfully we got it in Game 2. Game 2 was all about Bryan Woo. He had an absolutely incredible showing, had an absolutely incredible pair of cleats. The guy kept the Padres off the scoreboard until the 7th inning, really stepping up when we needed him the most. Woo's been on an absolute tear lately, and honestly, like I'm seeing his name left off some of those top 5 pitchers in the league lists for over the last couple months, and I really don't get it. He's been lights out for the Mariners, and in my opinion, he might be the best pitcher on the roster right now. Definitely the best pitcher in the last couple months, probably toe-to-toe or head-to-head with Logan Gilbert. And don't get me wrong, like Logan Gilbert has been fantastic too. It's such a toss-up between those two. Both have been sensational, and they're kind of a 1-2 punch right now. So, like, if we were looking at the postseason, like, I wouldn't be afraid to say those are the two that you want out first in those first 2 games. So, they both are a big reason to why the Mariners have been able to stay competitive during this stretch. Woo's development has been a huge storyline for this team. It's hard to ignore just how impactful he's been. When he first came back from injury, we had a pitch count and innings limit on him. Now we've taken that pitch count and innings limit. We've just really let it fly. He's working into the 7th inning now. It's just, he's been remarkable. The game two win also brought us one game closer to the Astros, who were struggling. They had lost two in a row at that point. Unfortunately, they managed to get one back after our tough loss in the series opener last night against the Rangers. The Mariners just really couldn't hold it together, and it ended up costing us big time. It's super frustrating, especially when you're in a tight race for playoff positioning. But these things are happen. These things are bound to happen with baseball. It's all about how the team bounces back from here. We've seen resilience from the Mariners all season, really, because I think we've been able to count them out. We've counted them out a lot. Guys like Will and Gilbert leading the charge here on the mound here. I think there's plenty of reason for optimism. So let's just hope we can avoid any more collapses down the stretch here. All right. So for those listeners out there that are Seattle Mariners fans, yesterday was one of those days you'd rather forget. There's really no other way to put it. It was just a brutal day all around. Let's start with how the Mariners opened this series against the Rangers. Nothing short of tragic. Well, we had control of the game, and then in the seventh and eighth, it just all fell apart. The Rangers put up 4 runs between the seventh and eighth innings, and just like that, they snatched a win that really should have been ours. It's hard to watch those kind of collapses. I did not go to the game. I cannot imagine what it felt like to be at the game yesterday, especially in a series that's important. We need every game we can get right now, and to let one slip away like this, it just really stings. It wasn't just the Mariners that had a rough one across the league. It just felt like a bad news day for any Seattle fan. If you were watching the A's take on the Astros for a minute there, it looked like they were kind of doing us a favor. The A's came back after being down 0-2 and had Houston on the ropes, but of course, in typical Astros fashion, they managed to hold on and they stole a win from them. They put up, I think, 4 runs in the bottom of the eighth. So it really kept us from gaining ground, but then the Mariners are gaining ground in the standings, but then the Mariners ended up losing yesterday anyway. So we were 3.5 games back to start yesterday, and now we're 4.5 games back today. So between the Mariners collapsing late and the Astros finding a way to win, it just ended up overall being a really crappy day. These are the kind of games that can really shift momentum, and it's critical that we don't let it snowball. So the Mariners have to regroup, reset, come out swinging tonight, because every game from here really matters. So another stat that's really going to either amaze you or really frustrate you, maybe a little bit both. The Mariners lead the entire league with 87 quality starts this season. Now, some of you who aren't familiar with that stat, a quality start means that our starting pitcher has gone at least 6 innings and given up 3 or fewer earned runs. That's a solid benchmark for a pitching staff, and it just shows how dominant our rotation has been all year. But here's where things take a turn for the worse, and I know some of you have already heard this, but for those who haven't, brace yourselves. Out of those 87 quality starts, the Mariners have only managed to win 57 of those games. So that's right, 57 out of 87. And honestly, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around that. If you think, you think about our pitching staff doing the heavy lifting and keeping games within reach, we should be converting more of those games into wins. But somehow we've dropped 30 of them. So that's just mind blowing when you think about how well the rotation has performed. So if some of you are really like asking how's that happen, like the answer really, it's pretty obvious. Like our offense stinks. Our offense hasn't been able to consistently back up those quality starts. We've had plenty of bullpen issues at key moments, especially late in the season. The seventh and eighth innings lately have been really tumultuous. It's been a frustrating pattern to watch. It's just frustrating to watch your starter give you a chance to win nearly every night, and then you just can't convert those opportunities into victories. So that stat just highlights how important every facet of the game is. That's something that I know a lot of the fans are really just screaming about right now, how elite our starting pitching is. But our offense and our bullpen just they haven't really been clicking. And we've just ended up with a bunch of missed opportunities. So hopefully, this is something the Mariners are going to address moving forward, address this offseason. But really, like, they're not out of the playoff race yet. So hopefully they continue to address this as we push towards the playoffs. Again, every win really counts. So Looking ahead at tonight's game, it doesn't really get any easier for the Mariners. So the Rangers really lined up a tough rotation for this series. They haven't really given up on their playoff hopes yet either, and I'm sure they are more than willing to play spoiler for the Mariners if they have that opportunity. So they've already started off this series with a bang. They debuted their highly touted pitching prospect Kumar Rocker last night. Rocker, he's been talked about heavily. He's had a lot of injury issues since he was drafted, I think 3 or 4 years ago. He didn't disappoint yesterday. But tonight it gets even worse because the Mariners face an even bigger challenge. Tonight marks the much anticipated return of Jacob deGrom to the big leagues. For those of you who aren't familiar with deGrom, he's a two-time Cy Young Award winner, and when he's on, he is just nasty. He's an absolutely dominant pitcher. He's been sidelined for over a year after undergoing Tommy John surgery. But in his rehab starts, he's looked really good. He's looked really sharp. He's showing that kind of stuff that really makes him one of the best pitchers in the league. So this is a huge moment, not just for deGrom, but for the Rangers. They're hoping he can pick right up where he left off. And if he settles in tonight and finds his groove, Seattle really could be in for a long night. The Mariners are going to need to get to him early, force him into some tough situations, maybe cross their fingers and hope that he'll be rusty enough that the Mariners could capitalize and get a win off of him. If we let him get comfortable, he's got a triple-digit fastball. He can really shut us down. So as for the Mariners pitching, we still don't have we do have a word. Emerson Hancock has been called up. So a lot of the rumblings that suggested that Emerson Hancock was going to be the one to pitch tonight, I think the Mariners literally just confirmed it a few minutes ago. So he is going to go tonight. Hancock has shown flashes of brilliance in some of his starts, but he'll be up against a tough Rangers lineup. When young guys face the Rangers, they've been able to really get a jump on them. We've seen them do this to Wu. We've seen them do this to Miller. I think Hancock, he has less experience, but I think it's not too far to say that he has similar experience in those guys. So the Rangers, they really do their homework. They know how to jump on these young guys. So hopefully Hancock can just play catch with the catcher and keep us in this game. So that's going to do it for today's episode. I'll be back next Tuesday with more updates as we continue to follow the Mariners through this pivotal stretch of the season. I hope everyone enjoys their weekend. Let's hope for some big wins. And until next time, keep it electric and go Mariners.